Good afternoon, one and all present here for this webinar on scope of machine learning in automotive industry by our speaker Ramkumar Koturswamy, functional safety certificate architect at Aptiv Services, uh, Germany. Sir, we are very happy for you that you have accepted the invitation and here for this webinar, sir. So I would like to give a short profile of the speaker, Mr. Ramar Koturswamy. He has done his schooling in St. Xavier's School in Palayam Kotai, and he has done his UG graduate in BE in Electronics and Communication Engineering in Noor Islam College of Engineering, and he's batchmate of Joseph Sir, and he has been coordinating this program as well. And to give a short profile of his career, and he has got multicultural exposure. He has worked in Germany and France, and he has also worked in Renault, France, Renault Nissan India, in Renault Nissan, and he was working in safety, software safety and design to quality, and he was in the verification of supplier evidences, and he was also working for Renault France for 2 years mission of software safety, and he's worked for various vehicle ECU projects in Renault, and we're very happy to have such an experienced person here who has got a technical exposure and he's got a good career in his technical experience, and he has also been in Bosch company, and his experience was system to software design in automobile, and he has also done some few projects on analysis testing, and he has also designed FMEA for a project, and he's an efficient reviewer in FMEA tasks, and he's got a good understanding of sensors and actuator interfacing in automotive embedded environment. So hope this topic is not only for IT or CSE students or professors. It might be useful for the mechanical, electronics, electrical. So it is going to have a multidisciplinary impact on the participants. So I put my thanks and accord a welcome to all the participants as well as to the speaker of this webinar. And over to the webinar speaker, Ramkumar Kotuswamy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, ma'am, for the good introduction. Yeah, and it's my pleasure as well to be part of this session. So yeah, it's like when we share our experience with others, especially with the students, there is a kind of special pleasure in my mind. So yeah, so each time when I have this kind of webinars, it's a kind of, let's say, there is something called pay forward. So what we get something from, I mean, we get all the knowledge based from this word. So we are just spreading the knowledge forward to others, especially to the students. So it was a kind of pleasure for me. So yeah, thank you for this introduction. So I think in the current world today, though we are classifying ourselves electronic engineer, electrical engineer, or mechanical engineer, whatever it is, but when we go into the work, there is no engineering will work alone. So it's a kind of coexistence between different domains. For example, if I take an automotive, there is a mechanical domain available, electrical domain available, electronics, and now even computer science is entering into that. And when we consider the battery electric vehicle, there is a chemical industry or chemical engineering comes into picture. So it's like coexistence of different disciplines. Like we are studying our subject of all the subjects. So that's the reason it's also important to concentrate on other topics or other subjects also, because when we work on certain systems, we need to have certain basic understanding of other systems which we have to interact on day-to-day basis. So with this introduction, I'll go to the presentation here. So today's topic is mostly, I mean, feel free to ask any questions. So there was a general saying, there is no question is a wrong question, could be an answer. So please feel free to provide our questions. We can, maybe we can stop in between. I mean, I want to divide this topic into two subjects. One is like, first is to give an introduction about automotive electronics, then to give an like extension how machine learning is mostly or widely used or new a field of domain, field of era for automotive in the automotive. So maybe we can take a break in between for the questions, and then we can discuss the questions. So please feel free to type in your question if something, or you can unmute and ask the questions. Okay. So with that, I'll go to the next slide. So here, I mean, when the automobile is most started in the beginning, most of the systems are electrical and mechanics. So in 1880s, the first automobile, four-stroke engine-based an automobile, or so-called car, has been introduced, or as a prototype has been patented in Germany. So at that time, it was fully mechanical and electrical systems. So if you see uh, the spark plug is controlled by a rotary switch each time, and there is a battery and the magneto ignition coil and so on. So this is a kind of mechanically controlled switch. Okay? And also all of them are, most of the time, it's more mechanical and electrical stuff. But in the recent days, it is being moved to more sensors and actuators, and these sensors and actuators are controlled or used by an ECU, electronic control unit. So this is how it's there's also a complexity increase, and so the complexity and the sophistication, we'll see in more detail what kind of sensor levels we have and what kind of actuators with some examples. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide. So the introduction of electronics in automotive, it started in 1950s. So if you see, the total share of cost is in the car automotive is 1%, and it's gradually increasing. We are close to 30% of the car cost. So it means if I'm buying a car for 10 lakhs, so currently, on an average, 30% of a car goes to electronics. So electronics means it can be a hardware or embedded software together. So it's all together. But in future, we can expect it is rising till 50%, because of mainly there are three domains. One is electric vehicle. So, this is more, let's say, fancy terminology. Each government is pushing to reduce the CO2 and so on. And also hybrid vehicle introduction. And there is also connectivity. So connectivity is also much more increasing. So what does it mean, connectivity? So there is a SIM card available in each car, and that is sending the information over a mobile network to the cloud server, collecting the data. Because machine learning is also more about collection of data, and the data collection is most important. With all the data collection, what we can design as a system. So we will also touch upon some points in the later point of time, how the collection of data is most important. And also the third part is more autonomous driving. So that is also an important domain which is increasing heavily in automotive. So it means when we are driving, because while commuting to the office, if it is in a big city, most of the time people spend a lot of time in the commutation to go to office and come back. For example, is big city like Chennai, Delhi, or Mumbai. So most of the time they have to spend in traffic. But in Europe, in India, putting an autonomous driving could be very challenging. But in Europe, they want to reduce this timing to put this effort into a different productive work. So they're investing a lot of time in autonomous driving capable cars. So for all these three things, it is estimated that in 2030, it may be reaching 50% as an approximation value of the total car cost. So I'll go to the next slide. So there is a brief comparison about electronics and mechanical. So I've just listed on certain parameters like reliability and robustness. So that's the only thing where mechanical system has more edge. So it means its robustness is highly robust compared to electronic system. So the advantage, all the other parameters or things are more advantageous towards the electronics. So especially diagnostic and troubleshooting and performance of electronics, because you can program in a way according to your need, and accuracy and precision. So you can precisely control your electronics with the help of sensors and situations available in the current situation, and comfort. So it's like you have an air conditioning, you have a radio inside the car, or you have a seat massager. So nowadays there are a lot of comfort features also putting into the cars. So that's also an important features where electronics plays a big role. For example, in some trucks or cars have a seat massager. When they go for a long drive, they can stop and the persons can use some massaging on the seat itself. So these are certain comfort features which I would like to explain. So in most of the time, we see the electronics have advantages. So I would also like to compare certain benefits, because if you consider like 20-30 years ago, or maybe 40 years ago, if you give the vehicle for servicing due to some problems or something, then it really takes long time. Sometimes the diagnostic and troubleshooting will take long time. The technicians used to take a week time to analyze the problem, to see if there is a vicious sound, from where it is coming, and so on. But now with the help of electronics, there is a lot of feedback mechanism, lot of sensors, actuators, closed loop mechanism. Let's say if there is a sensor problem or actuators, once you connect the tester to the car, it will give all the information, the diagnostic information, like a medical report. It will give you like all the information, which is good, which is not good. So it would be easy for the technician. Okay, these are the sensors having problems, so we need to change it, or we need to try to correct these cables and so on. So everywhere this diagnostic would be a really an advantage to shorten the time to troubleshoot, so that the driver, the user as an end user drivers will get a better advantages. So this I'll go to the next one. So this is a basic definition of an electronics control unit. So we have a three major blocks. One is input, process, output. So it's something similar to any system. We have input, process, output. So here input is kind of some sensors, either could be a temperature, pressure, etc. So by definition, it is converting a physical quantity to an electrical quantity, or physical signal to an electrical signal. And processing, so it will receive all the sensor related information. It performs some calculation and send the information or command signal to the output. So output is nothing but an actuator. Is there a relay or butterfly valve or injector? So it depends on the type of ECU. If you have a, let's say, power steering will have a steering wheel angle sensor, which will sense the input and see how much the driver want to turn, and it will provide the power assist accordingly. And also depends on the speed. If the speed is higher, it will reduce the steering. So these are the processing capabilities. For example, if the same thing is mechanical system, then it may not be possible, or electrically controlled steering motor, it may not be possible to incorporate the vehicle speed related information. So it would be a very hard step. So with the help of electronics, you can make it possible. So just I wanted to compare this ECU to our human body. So in our human body also can be analogous to an ECU. So we have, let's say, our skin is a kind of sensor. When a mosquito comes and sits, it's sensing that, okay, there is somebody is sitting on your hand. So it is sending an electrical signal through our neurons and sending the information to the brain. And the brain process, okay, it is difficult. So it gives an actuation to the other hand and to say, okay, to do some action based on that. So similarly, you can compare any ECU to our human body, where you can see, okay, there is an input and there is a processing and output. So this is a simple analogy to make it understanding if you come from a different domain. So I'll go to the next slide. So there is also a lot of communication protocol. For example, when the electronics is started inside the vehicle, they have different systems. Each systems are operating independently. For example, I have a powertrain ECU. Powertrain ECU is a separate ECU which have certain sensors, and it has its own microcontroller and some actuators and drivers for those actuators. So that's how it's separating. But when there are multiple ECUs are put into the vehicles, sometimes one signal information will be used for different ECUs. For example, if I take an example of engine speed and vehicle speed information. So it is used by powertrain ECU, it is used by cluster to display the speed and vehicle speed and engine speed, and it is used by the power steering set and anti-lock braking system. So one signal is used by multiple ECUs. So by traditional way, connecting a hardwired signal for each hardwire, or like a wiring harness to each ECUs, would be a more complex. So it would be difficult in terms of cost and weight, and in case if there is a problem, you cannot troubleshoot it easily. So the industry is in a search of certain communication protocols. So they go for SCSI, SPA, CAN, Multimast, CAN and LINK, so Ethernet. So recently there is an Ethernet package is being used by different, Ethernet is nothing but your LAN connection protocol. So where you browse, for example, if I have a LAN from my office network or my from home network, I'm connecting to a PC where I'm surfing internet or watching any YouTube videos. So this all connected through an Ethernet connection. In the latest communication, like for example, connectivity related information or ADAS or automated driving, so the amount of or the volume of data is going to be huge. So it is not possible with the help of iSCSI or CAN or whatever. So the latest one is Ethernet, which is also being used in automotive nowadays. We are also working on a couple of projects with the help, which is supporting Ethernet. And there is also a multi-switch Ethernet is also being used. So the basic idea is to reduce the cost saving. I mean, it is more saving the cost because you have to reduce the weight, and it's easy to troubleshoot because if there is only one wire which is sending thousands of information or millions of information nowadays in series. So I'll go to the next slide. So this is a typical E architecture. It is explaining different, let's say, ECUs connected together. For example, there is a CAN signal. If you see, there is a door lock for front and back, which is connected to a motor.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, sir. Can you please
please
zoom your screen, sir?
Okay, just a minute.
Yeah, it's okay now, sir.
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, so in this you have different systems like this is the instrument cluster, body control module, and climatic EC, climate control, which is nothing but our AC, air conditioning unit, and lighting system, seating, and there is also a powertrain and EPS, ABS, and all those systems. So there are different controllers. I mean, connection systems like communication protocol, CAN, GPS, GSM, LIN, and most. So each depends on the need. They have to. I mean, each communication protocol have an advantage and disadvantage. So it depends on the need. They would go for it. For example, if you take an example of MOST, media-oriented system transport, which is high package information, which is used for the multimedia-related speakers and screens and so on. But the security or safety of the communication is not verified at the highest possible proportion. So it cannot be used for some safety critical function. If you see CAN, which is having a high data transfer historically, so it also very secured one. So all the high critical ECU like clusters, powertrain, and so on, all those things will be connected through the CAN. And GPS is mainly for the purpose of GPS. I think I don't need to explain. And LIN is also used in certain system, but it can be used as a master slave. For example, so if there is a CTCU which is connected to different motors and drivers, so in that case, like a master slave, so LIN is being used. So there are different type of communication protocol is being used for different, depends on the need or the, so it just take a suitability for that particular system. Okay, so with this, I'll go to the next slides. Is it readable now? Okay, so it's okay. I mean, is it readable?
Yes, sir. A little has to be zoomed.
Okay.
Maybe if we go for presentation mode, it would be bigger. No, sir.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, better, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So there are different in a premium vehicle, like if you consider BMW or Mercedes or Audi, so or Porsche, something like this. So if there is a premium vehicle, there is more than 100 plus physical ECUs are available in a recent days. Okay. So like if you see connectivity, so these are grouped under different categories. For example, body related, body control, door, power window, HVAC, it's AC operating system, and roof module, power seats, mirror control, etc. Safety like airbag, ABS, traction control, stability control, tire pressure monitoring system, even data models. Things still chassis related, power steering, braking, and suspension. So there are different groups, like if you see electric vehicle, so each group of ECUs, so if you see there are plenty of ECUs, and there is also some smart sensors available. Smart sensor means it will sense this information and send the physical quantity through a communication bus, like a CAN based sensor. So if you consider, so that's also can be considered as a smaller ECU. So it is, the complexity is being really higher nowadays. So to reduce the complexity, I mean, today it is 100 plus. So that means in an average complex system, it can go to 120 ECUs approximately in a typical way. In future, even it can increase more and more. So if it keeps on increasing like this, then the troubleshooting again may be difficult because we have interdependency of the system. So there is also something called smart vehicle architecture or distributed architecture. So there is a kind of, I mean, in our company, we call it a smart vehicle architecture, but there is a different domain, or different companies are calling with the different names. So there is a different domain controllers. For example, all the body related functions are executed by one, all the chassis related, all the autonomous driving related, all the connectivity related. So there will be major domain controllers will be there. And these domain controllers will be connected to the different sensors and actuators inside the vehicle. And this will be like multiple brain of the car. Brain 1, brain 2, brain 3, brain 4, something like 4 brains together, controlling the complete car in terms of different sensing and actuation. So this is a kind of, let's say, first stage. And in the second stage, even there is more complex features, like they want to put everything in a single box. It's a kind of supercomputer, I would say, and everything will be put it in one box as a supercomputer, and it will be completely it is similar to a human brain. There is like only one brain which is controlling all the sensors and actuators placed inside the car. So there are many OEMs working in this kind of architecture. So there is also a cost benefit, because you don't need multiple ECUs, multiple box, multiple fixtures. There is a mechanical fixtures related cost is also reduced. And yeah, of course, it's a complex, but it will take some time to go to this architecture. But once you develop it, it is going to be more portable, because each time when we change the hardware, the software is going to be remain same. Maybe we will add some more functionalities on top of existing features. Okay. So here I say features means like, for example, power steering control is a feature. So each like ABS, anti-lock braking system, is a feature. Okay. So this is the current trend which is moving towards, but I think this year may not be feasible now because there are many companies putting this development on hold. So maybe the timeline may get extended. So this is my thing with this. Just a second. So these are the three feature development which is ongoing. One is connectivity, electric vehicle. So which, you know, we don't need a fuel tank, rather you'll have a battery backup. The battery backup will be controlling your vehicle through some motor operation to drive your vehicle and braking and so on. ADAS, autonomous driving, I think we will see in future in the further slides what other things. And connectivity is more connection between your car and to the central server. So you will be collecting thousands of data about the car and put all those data in a cloud server, which is used for analysis or which is used for some system design in the future. So data collection already, many OEMs, especially in Europe and US, they're investing a lot of amount for a lot of money and a lot of resources for the data collection from the cars. Okay. So this will also drive machine learning related developments in the future. So that also we'll see a little bit in the future in the upcoming slides. So with this, I would say the first part of this webinar is almost an end, but there is a next session. So just to summarize, historically, the automobile industry is more mechanical driven industry. So with some electrical features inside. Then more and more there is electronics, and complex electronics and complexity keeps increasing. And there is let's say multiple evolution in the electronics, and it's like more features are added on top of every time or every year or every decades. Okay, so this is the short summary about the existing till now. If you have any questions, I think I would like to take up this questions for the first session. Please feel free to ask it. Is there any questions already in the chat window? Because I don't have a chance to see that.
So we may have the query session at the end of the
Okay, so
session, sir.
okay, there is no question up to now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Perfect. Okay, so with this, as I said, so now it is currently, I mean, currently means the system which are in production as of now. The most of the time, the development language is used as C, but C may not be sufficient enough for the future development. For example, if I go for ADAS and AD, ADAS and AD is autonomous driver assistance system or advanced driver assistance system, and AD stands for automated driving. So I will explain you in the details in the upcoming slides. What is the difference between these two? What are the different levels available here? And everything, more details in the coming slides. But it needs a lot of processing related to object-oriented techniques. So C language may not be sufficient. So there are many companies shifting their focus towards C++, and even they are using Python for many research topics because it's more high-level language. You can use it; it's more efficient, and also MATLAB as well for the machine learning applications and so on, and also for normal applications as well. So here I'm going to explain two major applications, which at least which I heard or which I came across with the help of machine learning. Okay, so this is all about. We can go the next slide. So machine learning application 1. So this is a BMW car, the company which is introduced for the machine learning. So here, I mean, we will see in more detail what is application and so on. So the project is about oversteering detection in BMW with machine learning. So what is oversteering first of all? So oversteering is, for example, it's mainly an unsafe. It means that there are two options, two situations: oversteering and understeering. For example, if you're driving a car on the high speed, and when we make a turn, the speed and the turning ratio could be proportionate. If it is not matching to each other, or if there is a big mismatch, then you may lose the grip on the road, so which can be dangerous. Okay, so that's the main. The vehicle will lose the grip when we making a turn if you're making it high speed. So this also can be done with the different conditions, like if our tires are not so good, or there is a slippery condition on the road due to snow, for instance, or some other reasons. But what is the existing techniques? There is a many ABS, ESP. So when I say ESP, it's an electronic stability program or electronic stability control. So which is controlling the vehicle. If you're trying to make an oversteering, it will apply a brake to reduce the brake so that the turning could be sufficient enough, or there'll be no dangerous maneuver during the driving. Okay. Okay, so I think there is a background sound. Okay, so the control systems are designed. So there is a mathematical model available with the help of onboard sensors. So they are controlling the applications. When there is oversteering, so it is applying the brake and to regularize the car and to ensure the safe maneuvering of the car. But it's also have certain difficulties. For example, if your tires are inflated, or there are many limitations to the existing ESP system, but it's not to the greatest extent, but there is a little bit limitations available. So what BMW did a case study or as a project, they take oversteering detection with the help of machine learning, and they created a model for that, and they try to adapt the system. So we will see in detail how this has been done. So as I said, for any machine learning application, the data collection could be huge information. So the data collection, they did a real world data collection for the oversteering. So there is a different data which is being used, or different signals. One is acceleration, lateral acceleration. Lateral acceleration, like it's more the steering, how much we are steering to the right, or the speed of or the rate of change of steering action, and the steering angle and your rate. So there are different signals which has been collected. So BMW uses these data collected for quite some time, and so they have done this in a manual way. So manual way means they have went to the what is that, test track, and they have driven. There is an ESP system which is already available. So the ESP system will give an information to the dashboard whenever there is an oversteering. So this oversteering will, whenever there is an oversteering, it will be there will be a telltale indication, or there is a warning indication on the dashboard. And so they have recorded these situations manually whenever there is a oversteering, and they captured all these steering angle, all these signals in the properties. Also with these corresponding signals, so if these are the condition occurs, then it is a oversteering, because this input will be given to the machine learning applications to detect the oversteering applications. Okay, so this is like a manual recording. So they have collected totally 259,000 data points, and 43 minutes of recorded data. So this is for the first prototype. So it took totally 3 weeks to develop a ECU prototype. If you see, this is the efficiency of the development. So since you have an existing system, they are able to bring it up to 98%. So it means it's quite good amount of accuracy. So, but initially, the initial accuracy was only 75 to 80%, but they put a lot of additional methods. So this is a kind of table comparison. So BMW here, they use mainly MATLAB as a tool to apply the machine learning. So in MATLAB, it supports different type of let's say algorithms to see support vector machine. So these are the machine learning algorithms. If you're not aware, so if it's not clear for you, not to worry much. So just to give an information, these are the machine learning applications they used. So if you see, finally, with the help of decision tree, they are able to quite achieve the true positive was 98% and true negative was 95%. So it's quite good amount. And also they're using the PCA, just component analysis and so on. So they made a comparison of all those data. They're able to bring it up highest level of even in a physical system with a mathematical model, the tuning or the calibration will take months together. Months means it not even months. Sometimes the whole calibration life cycle itself, it will take close to an year of time. But with the help of machine learning, they could reduce the development life cycle, because you have a recorded data. Each time when we can learn, you can develop the logics or algorithms to learn from these recorded data and improve the efficiency whenever you feel if it's not working correctly. So we can classify this as a false negative, and feedback this data to learn your system again. So that's the whole idea of this machine learning. So the next step is about, because now it's all prototypes. So that means we have a MATLAB models which is driving through a DSpace lab or DSpace bench setup. So it's more prototype. You cannot use this MATLAB model as such with the help of DSpace bench in a real car, because these are prototyping software and prototyping bench setup, which is very expensive also. So they were using the MATLAB coder, and there is a ECU. They used a different, and they also tried with a different vehicles. So first they started with one variant, and they started with a different variant of M4 and so on. Okay, and also they tried with a different track. So even when running in real-time ECU, the accuracy rate was about 95%. This is also quite good amount of success rate or accuracy rate. So there is at certain case there is a failure, but this failure is really the starting point of the oversteering and the end point of the overtraining. It is like in terms of like 1 second or less than 1 second timing. But from ECU point of view, it's critical, but it's really from a human point of view, we don't really feel that, okay, there is an oversteering condition which is not detected. Okay. So this is one typical example where BMW uses the oversteering for the machine learning for oversteering detection and to create a safe maneuver. And it also gives more comfort compared to the typical ESP. So they feel it's very interesting, and so they use the machine learning model for developing an oversteering application. So it's like more prototype issue that developed hardware and available. So now BMW is thinking they can replace many of the existing systems in the software, and also this has many advantages. For example, you can define the accuracy rate of your system based on the recorded data. But if you have a mathematical model based ESC, then the defining an accuracy rate could be a difficult choice, because if you have a mathematical model with a software algorithm developed, it could be really difficult to say what is my performance ratio. Then to compare this performance ratio, you need to go really to the field to have thousands of driving hours to see how my system is working. Okay. So currently also they have thousands of data available. So it means, for example, when they drive, so the third point is about each time, as I said, I told in the beginning about connectivity. So when I say connectivity, there is a SIM card inside the car, which sends thousands of bytes, thousands of millions of bytes of information every day to the cloud server. So every OEMs are collecting a huge amount of data from each car about positioning, about different information inside the car and so on. So each OEM is also thinking about using this data for some machine learning applications to improve the driver experience, or to learn the driver behavior, or driver fatigue detection and so on. So each company is investing a huge amount of resource in terms of money, in terms of people, in terms of research infrastructure to improve the comfort and driver assistance features. Okay, so this is the whole summary about the first project, which I would like to give an overview. And do you have any questions up to now? Okay, so if not, okay, then I'll go to the next one. So the next application is more autonomous driving or driver assistance feature. Okay, so as per SAE definition, there are 5 levels of or totally 6, where 0 is no automation. So there will be no driver assistance, like a similar simple car where you can the driver is fully responsible for everything. So just I would like to give a structure of the table. Excuse me. So this is a SAE level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what is the level of automation, and what is the description? And so there are different type of, so here normally when you say your car, the controlling can be done in 2 ways. These are the 2 main control. One is longitudinal control, other one is lateral control. When I say longitudinal control, it's more acceleration and braking. Okay. And lateral control, it's more steering effect. So when I put a steering, what is my steering angle driven direction, and what is my steering lateral acceleration on the side, either left or right, whatever may be the side. So these are the 2 major control which needs to be supported at any point of time. There is nothing more than that. Though you're observing thousands of information around the vehicle, either you're going to accelerate or brake or steering on the left or right. So this is the so to differentiate into two major category. One is longitudinal, other one is lateral. So under longitudinal there is acceleration and braking. Lateral, just a steering angle on the steering position on the left or right. Okay, so that is what it's explained here. Execution of steering, so which is lateral control, and acceleration or deceleration. So deceleration means just opposite, so it's a braking event. So this is longitudinal control. So because sometimes I'm using in the next slides, I'm using longitudinal and lateral. So just to differentiate between these two. Okay. And monitoring the driving environment. Monitoring the driving in, just give me a second. Just give me 1 minute, please. You hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is it readable now? So there is a monitoring of the driving environment. So it means the driver is responsible for driving and also monitoring the environment. Okay. So we'll see in more in detail. So first level, there is no automation. So it means the completely driver has to look at the surrounding and driver has to drive everything. So when I say driver assistance, so the first level of automation is more either controlling longitudinal control or lateral control. So what does it mean? When I say longitudinal control, only acceleration and deceleration. Okay. So lateral control, either longitudinal or lateral. So lateral means steering assist. So there are certain functions, perhaps you already heard about it. One is adaptive cruise control. So adaptive cruise control, it will just control the speed according to the vehicle which is available in the front. So if the previous vehicle is braking, the adaptive cruise control operated vehicle is also brake. When it's moving at the high speed. So if there is no vehicle in the front, it will drive at the set speed. So this is only longitudinal control. And steering assist, it is more, let's say, lane keeping assistance. For example, if I'm driving, I'm not sure whether these features are already available in India, but in Europe, most of the vehicle, this L1 and L2 features are available. So steering control means like a lane keeping assistance. So if I set a lane keeping assistance, in case but still a driver will be holding the steering wheel and driving it. But unintentionally, if the vehicle is moving towards one side of the lanes, then the vehicle will give the warning, or the system will give the warning. If the system is activated, the system will give the first level warning to say, okay, you are trying to move towards one lane. If the driver does not take any corrective action, then the vehicle will try to bring back the vehicle to the center of the lane. So that is more steering, because the steering control itself done by the vehicle. So this is the level 1, either steering or acceleration. So it means either the longitudinal control or lateral control. But in terms of partial automation, both steering and acceleration both will be controlled. Okay, so the system will take steering and acceleration and deacceleration, all those things. But monitoring of the driving environment is done by the human driver. So what does it mean? So that means the system is driving, but still the driver will hold the steering wheel. If something he find it's not good, or if the system is not taking the response correctly, then the driver should come into picture immediately. It means even less than a second. So that means still drivers will hold the wheels, steering wheels, and close to accelerator or brake, but the system will drive it automatically by itself. So when I say L3, which is conditional automation, so in this case, there is a system which will drive and steer by itself. The system will also monitor the environment. And if there is a failure in the system, it will inform to the driver to say, okay, I have certain failure, so you have to consider. You please take care of the system. So it means here most of the time there is a redundant system available. Redundant system means there is a primary driving channel and the secondary driving channel. So when any one's driving channel goes faulty, the other one will drive for certain time until the driver will take care of it. Until, or like 3 seconds or 5 seconds or 10 seconds, depends on the system design. The driver has to come into picture immediately, and so on. And L4 is something, but the fallback is also the system. Fallback is the system means, for example, it is more like a self-driving car in a campus. Inside a campus, there is a driverless car. Or maybe sometimes you might have seen some airports will have a driverless train. So under certain parameters, it will not go through the entire country or all the places, but it is like inside a campus or inside an airport or inside a college, there's a self-driving cars which will go in defined rounds to commute the passengers. So that is a difference between level 3 and level 4. Level 5 is a full automation. So it means all driving modes, system capability in all driving modes. Okay. So again, I would like to summarize. So that means in our main car, we have two type of control. One is longitudinal control, other one is lateral control. Longitudinal control means just acceleration and braking. Lateral control is just a steering on the left or right. Okay. So when I say no automation, there will be no driver assistance features, but there can be a warning features. For example, if you are close to a vehicle in the front, then it may give some warning information so that the driver will be alert to apply brake, or if you are moving towards the side, like a lane keeping assistance or lane keeping warning system, LKW, lane keep warning system. So it is more, first level is more warning. Second level is control. So when I say driver assistance, either longitudinal or lateral, any one of the things is controlled, but still the driver has to drive the vehicle. So it's like you are driving on a highway. At some point of time, the driver is very tired. He did not notice that the vehicle is moving towards the side. Then the warning system will give you an intimation. Okay, you are moving towards one side of the lane, so please take care. Something like this. And if you don't do that, then it will try. The system automatically corrects the vehicle to bring it to the center of the lane. Okay. Similarly, for the braking also, autonomous emergency braking system or adaptive cruise control for the speed maintenance. Okay, and partial automation is both longitudinal and lateral. Both are controlled by the system, but there is a human driver who is always monitoring the driving situation. And the system, the next one. So why I'm giving all this explanation, because these systems are mainly adapted with machine learning. That means there is a lot of machine learning application goes into ADAS and AD features, so which I'm going to give an explanation in the next slide. So just before going to that, I'm giving an overview. What does it mean for a different level of automation? Okay. So yeah, so level 3 means, so level 1, either like ACC, LKA. ACC is adaptive cruise control, or LKA is lane keeping assistance. And partial automation is both longitudinal and lateral. Conditional automation is under certain conditions. For example, I'll give one example, highway pilot. Highway pilot means whenever the vehicle is in the highway, the system can drive by itself. So this is one of the system which is being developed in Europe in by many of the companies. And also there is an urban pilot. Urban pilot means the car can drive only in the city limits. Okay, so that is called as urban pilot or city pilot, they call it as. High automation is more under certain parameters. So certain parameters means like it's more airport or inside a college campus. There is autonomous cars which can drive under a specific route. So full automation is a level 5. It is a complete. So it means inside the map road, if you say okay from point A to point B, if I have to drive, so that's why they say in level 4 and level 5, you don't need a steering or a brake or clutch or accelerator pedal, because the system can drive, the system can monitor, and the system can act as a fallback as well. So they said okay, we don't need of any controls in the vehicle. It looks like a room, so that you work or you sleep, you do what you want. The system can take care of the entire stuff. Okay, so with this introduction, I'll go to the next slide. So this is more AD, autonomous driving, than driver assistance, I would say. Okay, so in the autonomous driving, there are many parts of software. So one is sensing. So when I say sensing, there are different sensors available: radar, cameras, and laser sensor. So each sensor will have a perception algorithm. So perception algorithm means, for example, it will provide radar means it will provide some raw data. Camera will provide some kind of raw data. So from that, the software need to identify which kind of input as a car, which kind of input as a truck, which kind of input as a human, or there is a ball. So these classification, all these classification algorithm in the perception are mainly based on the machine learning. So the complete perception, most of the time in the autonomous driving world, they're trying to put it as a perception algorithm, or they're using machine learning at different stages. For example, sometimes cameras are using a classification algorithm for the perception systems, and they will provide the classified objects to the perception. So this perception system will receive a different camera inputs and try to merge all the sensor inputs together. So here they will use like a clustering, or like clustering applications, that's also based on machine learning. And world model. So world model is more situational awareness, mission planning. And situational awareness is see, okay, who all are, how many vehicles are surrounding me, is there someone making a cut in before me, or there is someone accelerating or braking, to assess all the situations. And mission planning is based on these situations. I need to react, whether I have to accelerate or deaccelerate or brake, or I have to apply hard braking. So this is a mission planning. And path planning is an instantaneous activity. So mission planning is like, I have to decide what is my 10 seconds course of time, what would be my reaction, like there will be a trajectory which will be generated. And path planning is an instantaneous. So for the next 1 second, or up to 1 to 10 seconds, then what should I do? So the control commands will be given to the vehicle. So this is vehicle control. So until perception, yeah, there is many machine learning applications. And nowadays for the urban pilot and highway pilot, there are many companies also planning to use machine learning for this situational awareness and mission planning. And the path planning is more like a normal C++ development and so on. So if you see, at least 50% of this autonomous driving features goes like, or there is many machine learning applications have been involved. But it's again, whether all the companies are using machine learning, not necessarily. So some companies adapt machine learning for the classification, some companies use a conventional algorithm. So but the shift is more towards machine learning. Even some companies, they do a conventional development, they go for a machine learning application for the perception system, for clustering algorithm, and so on. Okay. So if you see, again, I would like to recollect my previous statement. So the system automotive is completely started with mechanical and electrical, and it started introduction with electronics. And after sophisticated electronics, there is also a machine learning, which is more towards and data collection and connectivity. So it's more like communication stuff comes into picture, and now it's more machine learning applications has been used or being developed, at least for the moment. So it is more towards the computer science now. So the complete shift is towards machine learning in many of the applications, and but unfortunately, most of them are in, or I don't know, is fortunate or unfortunate. So most of them are at the moment in the development phase, not in the production. But it will take a couple of years to come into the production, all these machine learning based applications and so on. Okay. So this is just one example which I have given. This is kind of a research project they used for the lateral control techniques, what kind of supervised learning they're using or what kind of learning they're used. And the next slide is more about a longitudinal control, what kind of machine learning they used here. I think that's all from my slides. With this, it comes to an end. If you have any questions, perhaps there are certain topics which may not be clear for some of you because of new terminologies. But don't worry, please go through this. But each terminology is, some terminologies are linked to the automotive electronics, or some terminologies are linked to machine learning. So if you're not worried, if you're not aware of this, it doesn't matter. But just to give an overview how the shift is going to happen.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation on the application of machine learning in automotive electronics. Sir, we have 3 questions from our participants. Like the first question is, what is the maximum number of ECU in a modern vehicle?
So recently it is coming around 100 plus or 120 for a, let's say, a luxury segment. But for example, I'd like to give it depends on the segment. For example, if I take a starting segment like a Quid or Alto as a, because I was working with Renault, so I can refer Quid or Alto as an entry segment where it can have up to 5 or 6 ECUs or less than 10, I would say. So if you go for a medium segment like Honda City or something like this, it can go up to 20 or 30 ECUs. Okay. If you go for a higher segment like a Mercedes or BMW or Audi and so on, it can go up to 100 plus. So the range can vary from 120 and so on. Okay. So it depends on the segment. So obviously it also includes the cost. So each time when you put a cost, you'll get more sophistication and features.
There is one more question, sir.
Yes, please.
From Mr. Jani. What is the objective of the problem you have discussed? Is this a binary decision case?
I'm not sure I get the question.
I think it was posted when we were explaining the PPT. What is the objective of the problem? Is this a binary decision case? Maybe if I'm not clear, the participant can unmute and pose the question to the speaker.
I don't see the question, at least. Perhaps I can.
Okay, sir. Let me move on to the next question, sir. Why isn't possible for India to achieve level 3 of autonomous driving? What is the parameter or factor which affects that while some of the countries got into level 4? Is the speed of the response of ECU plays a role here? This is a question from Ms. Niranjana.
Okay, to answer your question, we are not in a position to, let's say, deploy L1 or L2 systems, because when you say L1 and L2, they need to have a stricter rules. And for example, if I say, for example, if I make a lane change from one lane to other lane, in Europe, when they drive, they put an indication in the car and saying that, okay, I'm going to move from one lane to other lane. then they say, okay, especially to adaptation of rules and following the rules. The problem is like in India, still it's unfortunate truth that we have to accept. The rules and regulations are not much, let's say, let's say it's not followed well. So that makes it more difficult. And also the traffic congestion is another problem where it's difficult to adapt this. So L3 and L4, I mean, that's why sometimes there was many funny notes about if someone can introduce an L3 or L4 system for India, then it could be the best system in the world. So I'm not sure. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes we have to think about it as well.
Hi Ram, I got
Okay.
a question for you. Are
Yes,
you taking
please.
questions at this point of time?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
First of all, thank you for a very informative, well-presented session. Thank you so much. Very informative. I got a couple of questions. One, so I'm basically based in Sydney, Australia. So one of the challenges that we are facing in Australia for implementing level 2 or level 3 automations here is Australia has a very huge outback, right? So which means that some of the road signs are not as frequently available in the outbacks. So there are challenges around it. So as an organization who is dealing with this this scenario, do you have a workaround or do you have a plan in place for such scenario?
Okay, so there is, I mean, normally you have a camera inside the car which will detect the traffic signs and so on and sense the traffic signs. So in the current situation, there is also a drawback. For example, if there is an obstruction due to truck or something which is traveling, so in that case, we also have a redundancy information through the map. So we have a map information which can give the data. But from safety point of view, map are not considered as a high safety because it is transferred through over the air, like through a GPS or communication bus, like a GSM and so on, or radio signals or whatever it is. And those signals can be interpreted by anyone, can be, or it's not secured one, in other words. So it means anyone can hack the signal and try to change the information into that. So if you are, I mean, there is a possibility, that's the point, through the map information. But is it safe? I would say no, because it's not a secured information where someone can hack it and change the data so that, for example, if there is a speed limit of, let's say, 100, if someone is hacking the information and saying that it is 150, and yeah, perhaps that can lead to unsafe scenarios.
Thank you so much. I got one more.
So I hope that answered your question, right? The first question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your experience on some of the things that you worked previously, maybe 5 years back, 6 years back, and that we can see in the road and the things that you have worked on. And if you're able to share your experience around it, that'll be great.
Okay, that's a good question. It's an interesting question for me. Okay, I was initially working for the TVS Apache, the first digital cluster. That was one of my project when I was working for Precol. The second project for Indian customer, which is for the two-wheeler again, Bajaj. So the first, it's not the first one, but rather we were developing a second source for Bajaj auto company, which is a two-wheeler. The first Pulsar, which is introduced by Bajaj as a digital cluster. So we were working for a second source. So that means there was one other supplier also there. So they were the one who produced first, which is Magneti Marelli, if my memory is right. So yeah, my first, let's say, product on the market was in Indian market, especially. What I can say is a TVS Apache, the digital cluster, which many of them are on the whole, most of the responsible software responsible for that project. TVS Apache like 150 or 150 RTR, I think. Yeah, 150 RTR, the first one. That's the first model.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, but other products are in the European market. Perhaps I'm not sure whether So I work for many of the European clients. The rest of them offer off-highway vehicles and so on. And I think I see there was a question from Johnny. I mean, sir, how about you, sir? Do you have any other points to highlight? I forgot your name from Australia.
Bhagat Singh, sir.
Okay. Oops.
Sorry, I didn't realize that you're speaking to me. Thank you.
Okay.
That's Bhagat. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and there is a question from Johnny again, I think. The question is about, I just missed that again.
How
Is it,
hacking can
yeah, please.
happen from a vehicle?
Sorry, I missed it. Can you say it again, please?
How hacking can happen from a vehicle?
Perhaps there are many interesting case studies has been done. If you're interested, you can go through Google, like Jeep hacking. So it is a case study which is done in US, which can lead to a safety. So someone, it's a case study again. So with the help of OEM, they have hacked the Jeep. So it means, for example, you have a multimedia ECU. Through multimedia ECU, they're able to control the steering commands of the car, and they could make a small accident with the help of that. Just search for Jeep hacking accident and so on. You'll get plenty of information about it. Just if you're interested. And Nick, there was a question from John Hilton. It's about BMW oversteering detection case. Yeah, so that is first thing is about the binary decision case for the oversteering detection. Yes, there is oversteering happened or not, and also there is an application of brakes. So for that, it is more. It's not a. It is more linear. Okay, so when there is a oversteering detection happen, then how fast or what is the percentage of brake needs to be applied to make the vehicle maneuver safe. So there is both. So the first step would be the binary decision to see there is oversteering detection or not. Then the next stage would be to apply the brakes. The percentage of amount of the brake need to be applied. That's more linear case. I hope that answered your question. Any other things?
So hope we have answered all the questions of the participants, sir.
Okay, good. Nice to.
And we had a good number of participants as well, around more than 100 participants participate in this webinar. And you gave a very good insight on the topic, sir, the scope of ML in automotive industry. So we are very happy and we are very thankful for the good information that you shared with all our participants and with us. And thanks much for your deliberations, sir. I mean, for your speech.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. The pleasure is mine.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Thanks a lot, guys. And if that's all.
Thank you, sir. Thanks to the coordinator, Mr. D. Joseph Pushparaj, for having arranged this wonderful session. And thanks much to the DOIT team, Department of IT team, for the support. And thanks to the audience as well as to the speaker. Sir, if you would like to share, please begin.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Then I think I can step out of this.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ram. Wish you the best.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.